Welcome to The Lock Shop with Nielsen and Hustler, powered by Coolbet Canada.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Lock Shop. Nielsen and Hustler with you, back to our regular setup, even though that live show was a lot of fun. The Lock Shop is brought to you by our friends at Coolbet. Coolbet Chris was with us. He enjoyed Winnipeg over the weekend, maybe a little bit too much, but he'll be back with us a little bit later on in the week as well. But if you want to sign in for an account right now, if you missed out for some reason on week 1 of NFL betting, you want to get in on week 2, go to coolbet.com, use the bonus code LOCKSHOP, and sign up for an account today. You get a 100% deposit bonus on your initial deposit up to $200. Huss, how was week 1, buddy?
Week 1 was unreal. The entire weekend was as expected. It maybe even exceeded expectations, and the bar was raised pretty high. First off, it was amazing to have you and Chris in town. Shout out to everybody that came out and hung out with us on Friday. Big thanks to Crystal and the gang at BP City Place that took such great care of us. And it was a hell of a way to start off the weekend because we got right into it on Friday, had a great time, had some great NFL picks. I was very worried. NFL week 1 traditionally has been an absolute graveyard for me. And, last week, the first ever 6-0 record on Tuesday's Lock Shop and turned that into 3-0 for the NFL picks. So, I don't know. I'm for sure probably due for a terrible drought and bottoming out. But it was awesome. And then obviously the Banjo Bowl. I mean, we had quite different perspectives for that. Chris and I are right in the middle of it. Shout out to Trevor and the gang at Not Auto Corp for the great hospitality. And you, of course, called the game. Another beatdown for the Bombers. I mean, this team, I know I'm here and around it, but pretty hard not to say that the Winnipeg Blue Bombers are the class of the league, at least at this point, 6 weeks into the CFL season.
I think other people around the league, not media, not guys like myself, but was it Dickinson who said they're the best team in the league and it's not even close? I mean, I think that's how a lot of people are viewing it. And if they're not saying it, I bet you they're thinking it. I think the Winnipeg Blue Bombers are the best team in the Canadian Football League, and I will have to be convinced otherwise by them losing again to the Argos or something for a second time, right? Like they had a split with the Argos. At least the Argos were able to beat them once, but outside of that, I mean, their defense it's incredible. Like it's extremely difficult to do anything against that defense. Big Hill's playing like he's smack dab in the middle of his prime still. And then you got Jefferson and Jeffcoat, who are absolute monsters coming off the end. And when they do decide to try to throw it to the outside, I mean, you've got Dietrich Nichols, you've got DeAndre Alford, you got Mike Jones. Like those guys are making plays defensively as well. It's an absolute nightmare for other teams. They come to Edmonton. I got that game this week. They're here to play the Elks. I'm not traveling this week. I just get to stay here and call a game, which is nice. And I know that Elks offense can be explosive at times, but if their offensive line can't get Trevor Harris some sort of time, they're going to get rolled, buddy.
Well, you know what? It's going to be an interesting game. I'm going to get to that pick in the CFL picks. I did have a couple people wondering what the picks were from last week. I'm just going for it. We had Bombers Riders over 40.5. That was very key to get in on it early in the week because it did go up to 43. And thanks to really the one thing that wasn't going for the Bombers was the kicking game in Mark Leggio. And the missed extra points and the missed field goal ended up costing anyone that had it at 43. Lions -7, had the Cowboys +7.5 in the NFL opener. And then we hit a winner in tennis. Lloyd Harris +6.5, lost by 6 games. We had the Canada -1 and the El Salvador clean sheet in the soccer and the Blue Jays, which we'll get to. So, and then of course, the weird line movement that we talked about on Friday's Lock Shop with it for some reason going from Bombers -3 to Bombers -1. At that point, it was clear. It was time to get in. So that wasn't a Lock Shop pick, but we talked a lot about it, got on Friday's show. So as I said, let's keep it rolling going into CFL Week 7 and pretty interesting Thursday night football game we'll get to as well. And of course, we actually do have some golf this week. You might wonder, what is the Fortinet Championship? That's the old Safeway Championship. Apparently, they've got a new sponsor. But right after the Tour Championship, they got another tournament. And then next week at this time, we'll be getting ready for the Ryder Cup, which is less than 2 weeks away.
That's exciting as well. So we do have a busy episode. We're also going to dabble on the red hot Toronto Blue Jays as well as we work our way through this episode. Also, give us a follow if you're watching on my Twitter account right now at NielsenTSN1260, or obviously find our content over at Hustlerama as well. Give us a follow at Lock Shop Bets. We've been hovering between 700 and 800 for quite some time. So if you like our content, give us a follow at Lock Shop Bets on Twitter. All right, let's get into CFL Week 7. And Huss, I don't think we've had this yet this year, but we're both on the same game, the same play, and it's the Argos plus 3.5 against the Riders. I like it. You like it. Tell me why.
Yeah, well, full disclosure, I originally had the Alouettes -1, and I've already bet that game, but I figured for gubbing it out, my spidey senses went up when I heard about Kahari Jones testing positive for COVID, and he's going to be away from the team for 10 days. I think Kahari Jones is like the emotional leader of that team. And I really do think, maybe more so than other coaches in the league, his absence makes me nervous. So I wanted to change that pick. Now, I hope this isn't the double mush, because in history, when everyone seems to be consensus on one side, that's usually when things blow up. But it's hard not to take the Argos at plus 3.5 in this game. I mean, first of all, we don't know what Cody Fajardo's status is right now. If it's Isaac Harker going against the Argos, and an Argo defense that actually, showed up pretty well against the Bombers in both games that they played against each other. So, when you think about what happened to Saskatchewan, we'll see they might get some guys back. But I mean, I really think that the Argos, are certainly in the same class as the Saskatchewan Roughriders. And when you add in the uncertainty at the quarterback position, and frankly, the way Saskatchewan's played the last couple of weeks, pretty hard to feel too confident backing them as a home favorite. Listen, I think these teams have played close games. I think they will continue to do that. And I think this one could absolutely be something similar to we saw in the Toronto-Hamilton game last week that went down to the final play and ended up being a 1-point game. So getting this sort of a point spread for the visiting Argos against a beat-up Rider team coming off those 2 losses to Winnipeg, that to me is the play right now. It's certainly not going on the Riders. And as I said, I've been pretty high on the Argos. When we saw them early in the season, I was very impressed with how quickly they had turned into, bringing all those pieces that they got together in free agency into a pretty cohesive team. I think Ryan Dinwiddie deserves a lot of credit. And then, of course, they got Chris Jones coming into town as well, because I guess a couple of their coaches weren't vaccinated, so they're out. Chris Jones is in, which certainly adds some great drama around the CFL. You'd be hard-pressed to find a more polarizing figure than the former head coach of the Riders and Alex, or I guess at the time Eskimos. But anyways, I think this will be a fun game right now. But I like the Argos plus 3.5. What about you?
I think I probably would have gone with whichever team was the plus 3.5 underdog. To be honest with you, I think it's going to be a close football game. So I know the Argos are on the road, but the Argos have done something this year that the Riders weren't able to do. And that is they managed to beat the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. I don't care if it was in Toronto or Winnipeg. The Riders had a chance to beat them at home as well. And guess what? They couldn't do anything offensively. You mentioned not just Fajardo, but on the defensive side of the ball, they were missing some key pieces even coming into that game against Winnipeg, and then lost some more pieces in that game against Winnipeg. So I think the Riders are a good enough team at home to possibly win it. I don't think they would blow the Argos out. I think it's going to be a tight football game. And I have the Argos at number 2 on the old power rankings. I think most people do, right behind the Bombers right now. And I don't think with the current status of the health of the Riders right now, I don't think it's crazy to think that they can cover 3.5, possibly win outright. So that was one game that really jumped off the page for me. And it'd be interesting. These are early in the week lines. We saw that Bombers Riders line move in a surprising way last week, Huss, where it got better for us. If you like the Bombers, what do you think happens this week with this 3.5? Like, is now the time to get in if you like the Argos?
I think so. Although, I mean, if we get word that Cody Fajardo is out for the game, later on this week, and that it's going to be Isaac Harker, I could see that number maybe coming a little closer to even. So yes, you're right. Getting in on the Argos. I don't think it's going to grow in the Riders' favor at this point. So I think it's safe. If you are on the Argos, I think now's the time to get in. If anything, it'll stay around the same. But if we do find out there's more injury issues for the Saskatchewan Roughriders, I think this number gets closer to a pick 'em, to be honest with you. Yeah, heck, if not, I mean, if not the Argos being favored. I mean, Harker does not have a lot of experience. Yeah, he looked okay. I mean, you were there calling the game. It wasn't like he didn't look like a CFL quarterback or anything like that. But God forbid if they have to go to Paxton Lynch at some point. That's not good for Saskatchewan. But yeah, I'm into it. And then of course we had a couple totals for the other two games. I'll start with mine. Very similar to the pick that I had last week of Bombers Riders over 40.5. His number is so low for two offenses that can, score points and put things up. And we're not even talking about defense or special teams. I mean, on the road 2 weeks ago, Edmonton looked incredible. I mean, sliced and diced the Calgary defensive secondary, which probably made their performance in the rematch that much more disappointing at home. But that was a game, to me, Calgary's season was on the line. I mean, I know it's hard to, sit here in the hot take factory and say it's a must-win game in week 6. But that was as close to a must-win game that you would ever have in that position. If they were lost, they were at 1-5. They would have lost the season series. You're in 5th place in the division, trailing everybody by at least probably 2 games. So they saved it. But I think the Elks have a lot more to give than they showed last week. And I think the Bombers are going to need to be ready for it. And I think it's unreasonable to think that they'll go out and hold a team for the 5th time in 7 games to single digits. But I also think the Bomber offense is coming into its own right now. Nick Dembski looked amazing. Andrew Harris is running the football right now. Zach Collaros has confidence. And with Naaman Roosevelt being signed, in a lot of ways, Dusty, it was the perfect thing to happen for these 2 games in the Labor Day Classic and the Banjo Bowl. Not that he got on the field, but the Bombers were suffering from some drops. And that was a big reason why that Calgary game was so close. The receivers have stepped up in a huge way in the last couple of weeks. Collaros is just seemingly getting better and more comfortable with these guys every time. He still only played, 10 games with the Winnipeg Blue Bombers? So I think that there's going to be some points. As much as I think the Bomber defense is elite and the best in the league, I think the Elks are going to put some up. So I love the over 41.5 in this game late Saturday night.
Yeah, the Bombers, they're not playing Roosevelt. Like, he's ready, he can go. But they like what they have in those receivers right now. And when you see Bailey and you see Dembski and Wolodarski those guys are different because they got those Canadian spots. But, it would basically be Bailey that you would probably take out for Naaman Roosevelt. And I think Bailey's got big-time upside in the Canadian Football League. So, Zach, there's so much talk about the defense and then Andrew Harris. I don't think there's enough talk about the pretty elite group of receivers that Zach Collaros has to work with in Winnipeg, buddy. I don't mind that over. Could the Bombers hold the Elks to 9 points? It's reasonable to think they could with the way they played so far, but I do think this will be a little bit higher scoring than many people are expecting. So 41.5 seems like a reasonable number. And I'm going to a 48.5, which is a pretty high total in the CFL this year. And I know both of these teams are coming off putting up 45 plus against the Red Blacks. So it's a little bit of a different story. But I do think both Mike Riley and Vernon Adams are not afraid of having a showdown here offensively. And I think both teams are more than capable of doing that. So I think by the time this thing kicks off, that line's going to be 50. It's going to get to 50 this week. So I'm going to lock it in at 48.5 and sit back. One of these teams is getting to 30. For sure, one of these teams is getting to 30. And the other one might come along for the ride. So I feel pretty comfortable with one of the higher totals we've seen this year. I still like it at 48.5.
It's about time we get a 50 on the board at some point by the time they're kicking off.
I know.
It's been a weird season, and a big part of that has been because of the Bombers. When you hold teams to single digits, incredibly, was it 4 of 6 games so far? There's been a lot of unders, but I do think those offenses, particularly we've seen in the last couple games, are now sort of getting into that mid-season form. So I'm with you. I'm looking forward to that game. I was originally on the Alouettes. We'll couch that pick as far as the CFL goes, but should be a great week in the Canadian Football League. Looking forward to it, and nice that you don't have to travel. You can hang out with the fam, head on over to the stadium, call what should be an awesome football game, and actually have a Sunday at home without having to travel in the middle of the NFL games.
Be in my own bed. On a Saturday night, which hasn't happened in 6 weeks. All right, Huss, let's get to Thursday Night Football, where last week we went head-to-head on that 8.5 point spread. You ended up hitting it, but what a phenomenal game. I don't know if we're going to get a duplicate effort here from the Giants in Washington. But Thursday Night Football last week was amazing. I didn't mind taking the hit in the 8.5 just because that was a phenomenal football game.
You know how sometimes we joke that the NFL is fixed? It just has to be. like Vince McMahon could not have planned out the Thursday night game and the Monday night game, the primetime games, any better for the NFL. I mean, they come back with two of the most spectacular primetime games we've had in years, both in week one of the schedule. Last night's game, an absolute classic. Shout out to the Raiders. You'll probably never hear me say this again in public, but hell of a win for the Raiders. An amazing scene and atmosphere at Allegiant. But man, game one of the regular season between the Cowboys and Bucks was phenomenal. And the Cowboys offense, Dak Prescott, if we were worried that how he was going to look after his injury last year and the fact that he didn't play almost at all during the preseason, he came out ready to go. No one can run on the Bucks defense. That much we know. I think don't freak out if you got Zeke Elliott. I think he'll be fine going forward. And CeeDee Lamb earlier on is a guy that is heavily invested in CD and fantasy. I didn't like some of those drops that he had, but he made some plays later on. And my God, what did Amari Cooper have? 13 catches?
Ridiculous.
I was impressed with Dallas. But again, it's Brady. Got the benefit of the doubt of a pretty sketchy play by Godwin that could have easily been OPI. But it was what it was. It was a hell of a game. Everyone enjoyed it. And I enjoyed it because of the fact that it was no stress late in the game with those 7.5 points and knowing that the Bucks were up. So, hey, it was a great start. And we maybe don't have the marquee matchup this Thursday, Dusty, that we had in week number 1. But I'm always here for a good old NFC lease Thursday night primetime game.
If you're watching on the live stream right now, make sure you subscribe to the podcast. Just search The Lock Shop on all your podcasting platforms so you don't miss an episode. 2 episodes a week here as we get fully back in to the NFL campaign. Okay, so we got a couple of different plays this week with this Giants-Washington game, and I have to say, before I get to mine, I do love Washington -3 in this game. I like it. I think they're going to win. I think they're going to win comfortably. I think their defense is going to be a very big problem for Daniel Jones and the Giants offensively, which is why I'm going to go on the side of the under here as well. Washington last week, I thought did a decent job keeping Justin Herbert and what could be a really good offense with the Chargers to just 20 points. They held them to 20 points last week. Obviously, they lost Fitzmagic last week, so they're going to have to go to Heineke. And, I've seen him show an ability to make some plays, so I think they could score some points here, but I think the 41 is actually the lowest total on the board right now, a cool bet for the week. I could be wrong, but I'm still going to side with the under because I see the Giants coming away like 21-10, 24-10 type of thing. I will not take Daniel Jones to put up 20 points against this Washington defense on the road when he could only put up 13 last week at home against Denver. I don't see it. So I'm on the under 41.5 in the Giants-Washington with Washington on Hustler's side here covering that spread.
I got to tell you, I'm not big in on Danny Dimes, but that's a murderous schedule for a young quarterback. First 2 weeks going up against the Broncos defense, which is legit, and then on the road to take on Chase Young and Sweat and Landon Collins and the rest of the WFT gang. I'm taking the WFT. I love them at -3 right now. I was hoping to not get, because originally this opened at 3.5, and then I saw last night it's at 3. It's at 3 right now. And I think that has something to do with Ryan Fitzpatrick going on the IR. But I have to tell you, I got a lot of confidence in Taylor Heineke.
Yeah.
We hadn't seen a lot of him in the past, but there he was last year in the playoffs. He almost beat Tom Brady. That was the toughest game the Buccaneers played in the playoffs, was the game against Washington. So anyways, I like them in this situation. I think they bounce back from that loss. You can't go 0-2 at home to start off the season. They've got the most winnable game probably on the schedule of their divisional opponents, Giants at home. And I think they jump on them. And I really do think, unlike, some backup quarterbacks that would be coming in, without a lot of reps so far in the season, Heineke, I know he's got the confidence of Ron Rivera. They wanted that veteran quarterback to come in as a 1-2 punch, but they did have to me, the drop off between Fitzmagic and Heineke isn't that significant. And I still like him, going head to head against Danny Dimes, especially with Antonio Gibson and Terry McLaurin and Samuel and some of the players that they have in Washington. So yeah, I don't mind laying the 3 points. I like it, and I'm actually loving your under as well. I don't think this is going to be any sort of the shootout that we saw last night on Monday Night Football. That's for sure.
Yeah, I don't think it'll be the case. I'm just looking here. If you want to tease it to Washington +3 and under 47, you're still going to get it at -110, and that's covering your ass on Washington, even to keep it close in a loss, and then under 47 as well. That's buying the 6 points on both the total and Washington side of the spread, and you still get it at -110.
That'd be the special Lock Shop Thursday night teaser.
Yeah, I like it.
I could get in on that. I
think we do that.
Let's do it.
It's a safe play, but it's still -110. You're almost getting your money back. So, yeah, I like that a lot, actually. I'm a sucker for a good teaser.
When one guy's on a total and one guy's on a side, we can definitely come together and do a little Lock Shop Thursday night teaser. So roll with us on that one. But Washington -3 and under 41 are the Thursday night picks.
Of course, on Friday's episode, we will have a full slate NFL action. We'll each give you our 3 best bets, which we went 5-1 on as a group last week, which is a nice start to the season for us. But we're going to get to some golf a little bit later on in this episode, but we got to get into these red-hot Blue Jays, buddy. Now, as long as Chris Abbott keeps betting on the opposition, I think it's safe for us to hop on the Jays right now. And once again, I mean, we're on a couple of different things here. You got a side, I got a total. How can you not take the Jays over 8.5 right now in a game in which they're putting up 7-8 by themselves the majority of the time for the last week? So I'll go over 8.5 here at -128.
It is. I'm speechless talking about the Jays anymore. I mean, it was unfortunate. The only time the Jays have lost in the last 2 weeks was the Friday night when we did the live lock shop last week here in Winnipeg. And of course, that was game 1 of the series, and some of us were on that prop for them to sweep, and it sort of blew up right away. But the way they came back and did it in the most bizarre fashion, being no hit for 6 innings in a 7-inning game, and then putting up 11 in the top of the 7th. Are you kidding me? And then, of course, I mean, the 22 runs on Sunday. I think they outscored 13 or 14 NFL teams on Sunday.
Half the league they outscored.
You don't see that too often. Man, in August, we were really concerned about what's happened to the bats. I mean, they were going through some series, scoring 1, 0, 2. I mean, the pitching was really starting to perform, and all of a sudden the bats went ice cold. Everything's clicking right now. The performance of Manoah last night was absolutely phenomenal. And, to get them on this run right now at -135, it was, I believe, 141 last night. So even a bit better of a number right now with Berrios on the hill. Now, granted, they're not going up against the Baltimore Orioles anymore, or even the struggling Yankees. This is the class of division, the Tampa Bay Rays. But the Rays are sort of pretty comfortable where they're at right now. The Jays have all the momentum. And to think that we're talking today on this Tuesday, still in the first half of September, of the Jays having already closed the gap, past everyone they needed to, and being in a wild card spot is truly phenomenal. So I'm riding. We are with the Blue Jays probably on a nightly basis if they continue, until they lose 2 or 3 in a row. And as long as Chris is doing his civic duty and putting token bets on the other side, he's mushing them to the playoffs. We'll see whether they can go all the way. Oh, and just quickly on the Jays, we were screwing around. I got on the Jays at 27-1 on a World Series bet a few months ago.
You did, hey?
And then as they struggled, it went all the way up to about 60. And, it really seemed like they weren't going anywhere. And, man, if you check the totals over the last little bit, I still saw, I think on the weekend, they were at about 32. I think it's now down to about 20. And it probably is going to – because the bottom line is if the Jays get in the playoffs the way they're playing, they might be the scariest team in the AL, the way the pitching is going, the momentum that they have, and the red-hot bats. I mean, we know this team, when they're at their best, can beat anybody. So I can't wait for this home stretch and hopefully a wild card win and a spot in a series in the playoffs. I don't think anybody wants a piece of the Toronto Blue Jays right now.
23-1 right now, plus 2,300 to win the World Series for the Toronto Blue Jays right now. And I said it on my show yesterday morning, Huss. I feel like they're either going to collapse and lose a wild card spot, or just use their bats to go on a deep run in the postseason. Like it's going one way or the other. Because if they go in to the playoffs like this, they're going to be an extremely difficult out. And it's fun. It's great to watch right now. They're just like, not only are they a really good team, but they're a team that has a lot of fun. Like they're fun to watch. These young guys are just living their best lives right now. It's awesome to watch. So hopefully we can make some money off it today as we work our way through the lock shop. All right, let's get to some golf. Huss, not a great lineup at the Fortinet Championship. I think John Rahm's like almost minus money to win this thing. When you look at the field, he's like plus 300 or something. But there's some value here in a field where there's an opportunity for some guys who sometimes are further down that list of guys you think could win to actually pop up and bring home a dub here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. First off, John Rahm, 4-1 to win the tournament. I mean, I can't remember the last time, and I don't know why he is playing in this tournament. My buddy Jeff Feinberg compared John Rahm playing in this tournament to Justin Thomas playing in that father-son event as the son. And, Tyler's out there with Charlie and whatnot, and Justin's the kid in it. I mean, no fair. But I'll tell you this. I think that I think Stuart Sink won this tournament last year. I mean, this is an eminently winnable tournament for some guys, maybe not off the top. John Rahm is thinking Ryder Cup next week. I was stunned to see that he was in the field for this, but maybe he's a guy that likes to play the week before, and he figures this will be good for his preparation. But I'm certainly not laying anything on a 4-1 favorite in a golf tournament in a full field. So listen, I think there's a couple guys that I like. Kevin Na, 22-1. Got in that yesterday. I do believe that's actually dropped. I'm looking at it right now. Maybe we moved the line with that huge chunk we put on Kevin Na. Just kidding. He's at 20 now. But Na is he's very fired up. He just got verified on Twitter. So I think he would love to have an interview afterwards, maybe to credit the folks at Twitter for giving him the blue check mark to push him in. The guy putts very well. This is a course that sets up for a guy like his game. You don't have to be, Brooks Koepka or John Rahm off the tee or Bryson DeChambeau. So I love Kevin Na. He's had a great season, was certainly in consideration for the Ryder Cup team. And Max Homa. Homa at 54-1. That number just really stood out. To me, it was just great value because I think that he is, right up there with some of these top guys. Of course, won at Riv earlier this year as the hometown guy. So the opportunity to get in, how is Max Homa 54 when HV3 is 34 and Tringali's 32 and Cam Champ? I mean, to me, if anything, Max should be a little bit above that. So he hasn't been great as of late, but I certainly think the potential's there, and I love the numbers. So Kevin Na and Max Homa, I think, provide some good value for this week's Fortinet, formerly the Safeway Championship.
All right, and I'm going to go Hideki. He's 18-1, and he finally had a little bit of a break. Like from the Olympics to the Tour Championship, it was 6 consecutive starts for Hideki. At this course, finished T3. It was like 5 years ago, but he's had some limited success on this track. So I've got Hideki at plus 1,800. And then this one I really like for a 34-1 bet. Harold Varner has been playing extremely well as of late. He's got 4 top 15s in his last 6 starts, 3 top 20s at Silverado, and he's made the cut all 6 times he's played here. So 3 top 20s on this course, has been playing extremely well in his last 6 events, and you can get him at 34-1. I think this is one of those guys we just talked about, those guys that you wouldn't usually see as a contender at an event with everybody there. With this event, a guy like Harold Varner should be able to find himself in contention, and at plus 3,400. Actually, I like it more than my Matsuyama at 18-1, to be honest with you.
Love HV3. He's an RBC guy and actually was in Toronto yesterday doing some work with, a Growing the Golf event. I didn't really catch what it was. He was on with O-Dog and the guys on Overdrive yesterday. And he's fired up to get onto this course. Love HV3. I mean, it would be great to see him in the win column. He mentioned yesterday how much he has had a great season, very happy with the way things have gone, but wants to win, wants to be a winner on the PGA Tour. And he's come very close at times. And for guys looking for their first win, an event like the Safeway or now the Fortinet Championship, often a great place to do it. Maybe not having to take out as many of the super elites that you might see on a full field stacked PGA Tour event.
All right, there you go. Those are golf picks for the week. We got the NFL Thursday night, just a little tease there for the Thursday night, and then we'll dive into it on Friday. We'll break down that Thursday night game. If there's any big changes in the Canadian Football League, we can hit on that as well, and then we will dive once in with our best bets. We got to do our circa picks with Chris Abbott once again as well, and we'll have another boosted odds partner parlay for you on Friday as well. Love getting back into the 2 episodes a week with all the football, Huss.
Absolutely. And if you're a Vikings fan, maybe wait 10 minutes to tune in, because the Vikings are going on the list, and you know why, everybody. You know damn well why they are going on the list. It was a great week to start it off. Cannot wait for Friday's show to get back in. We did go, I believe, 3-2 in the
Circa was 3-2, so
started off with a winner. I mean, you don't want to be on the other side of it.
Yeah.
You know, if you did 3-2 every single week, 60% for the season, you're probably right there. But there's always going to be a few pitfalls along the way. So being consistent. Anyways, we'll get to that. And you know what else we should mention? For maybe some of the Winnipeg listeners that are not the Hustlerites that have filled your show and your inbox since our station shut down. We've got a big draft coming up on Thursday.
We do.
A very big draft. Now, that's going to be 9:05 in Edmonton, 10:05
your time
here in Winnipeg. And if any of you like the drafts that we did during the pandemic, Dusty is certainly carrying the torch of drafting ridiculous things. I either come on as a analyst, but I have been in, and I might be the only road winner ever of the draft. I came in and shocked the world with the Christmas movie draft last year around the holidays. So my return, and Dusty, fill us in on what we're going to be drafting, because I have a feeling there's lots of lock shop people that this would be right up their alley.
Yeah, and you should get an email. Yeah, it was sent to your Yahoo account. So Awanik laid it out. We're doing a 12-round draft of pub food menu items. So how it works is we'll each have to draft 3 different types of draft beer, a cocktail, a shot, 2 different types of wings, 4 open food categories, and then an appetizer or shareable that'll be designated there as well. So there's a lot going on here, Huss. It's a big strategy draft. I'm really looking forward to it. You will be picking number 2 right behind me with the first overall pick, which I kind of wanted but kind of not. So pressure's on.
Yeah, I'm going to need to check out the format. To me, it's all about the format and figuring out what else is going to go, because as you well know, I've been training for this draft for the better part of my adult life. And I can tell you, you want to talk about a crash course in draft preparation? I think I prepared for this draft for about 30 hours last weekend alone with you and Abbott in Winnipeg. So I'll be ready to go. Can't wait on Thursday. And again, folks, if you're listening in Winnipeg or somewhere else, just hit them up on the app, hit on Edmonton. And it's going to be 10:05 Central, 9:05 Mountain Time on Thursday. And then Friday around the same time, we'll get back into it heading into the weekend with the full slate of NFL picks, the Circa contest, Chris Abbott, and the gang back together. But and again, thanks again to everyone that came out last week. It was great to see the gang. Lots of Winnipeg Sports Talk support as well, both there and at the game. Just an awesome weekend getting you guys together. And that's the first of many, I think, when the situation arises that we can get together in the same spot. Miss doing that, being live in person with the other guys doing shows. It's been a while.
It was great. It was so awesome doing a show with other humans sitting right next to me, which just has not been the case forever. So it was fun to do. If you haven't checked out that episode, you can go back and check it out if you want. It was just a good episode. But yeah, we'll be back again on Friday. Well, we're both not done online today. I got the fantasy football extravaganza tonight at 8:00 Edmonton time. And Haas, you got Winnipeg Sports Talk. What's coming up on there?
We do. Well, actually, speaking of fantasy football, my pal Andy McNamara is going to jump on the program. And, Andy, we'll talk about last night's game. We'll get into a bunch of NFL talk, but we'll also get his thoughts on who you might need to hit up on the waiver wire if you're needy at a particular position after week 1. And then the voice of the Jets, Paul Edmonds, is going to join us for a little tee up of Winnipeg Jet training camp with the players all coming to town over the next few days and getting ready to get back on the ice. So it's nice to be back into September. It's a great time of year for sports. There's so much going on, a lot of excitement about the upcoming hockey season. But It'll be good today just to catch our breath without football for a day and get ready for the Lock Shop on Friday and some big CFL games heading into another awesome NFL Sunday.
Looking forward to it. Once again, thank you for downloading another episode of The Lock Shop. Tell your buddies about it as well and tell them to sign up at CoolBet using the bonus code LOCKSHOP to get a 100% deposit bonus on their initial deposit. We'll be back with another episode on Friday. Talk to you then.